What is happening, everybody? Kris here. It is finally time to release this video. I didn't think I was going to do it, but here it is. Massive amount of chaotic blocks and a chaotic business. Some pretty severe burnout. Might be the best block I've ever made before. Let's get started. Isn't it crazy that cherry can darken up that much in just a couple of months in the shop? So we have cherry, walnut, and maple. Purple Heart, Wenge, and Padauk. Gosh dang. There it is, 300 gallons worth, 300 gallons of sawdust. We are all planed, 600 board feet worth, ready to go. My mom's coming up, she's gonna help watch the kiddo, and I'm gonna get some serious time in. Then my wife's gonna take off for the holidays and go see her family. I'm gonna stay here and work, so I'm going to get like 24 days straight. Yep. Bye. It's a lot of work, but it's exciting to be able to just work 7 days a week for a while and get stuff done. So most of my material comes straight line, but I do have to use the track saw and straight line some of it, and because you're taking such a little bit at a time, it makes a huge mess. Probably one of my least favorite things to do. Then we go from there to the bandsaw, which is a enjoyable experience. Using this Laguna bandsaw with the power feeder and just being able to put the material in there, you know, once it's all set up and dialed, it's relatively safe. You don't get your fingers around there, you know, and it's fairly automatic. You still need to hold the power feeder and make sure it doesn't slam when you get to the end of the material. But compared to being in the little shop with the little table saw, it is a night and day difference. And you don't get the bind that you normally get when you're using a table saw and you're doing rips. So the strips are all cut, and we started gluing. The way to build these chaotic butcher blocks is a little bit of a repetitive process. So you start out, you mill up all the material, and then you glue up random species. This time lapse of gluing up all these random panels was taken over a 5-day period of time. I really wanted to show the depth and the amount of work it takes to create this many panels. Now I had some really bad chip out on the planer, so that meant it was time to change my blades. After about a year and a half of having the planer, it was time to rotate them at 90 degrees. I have to admit, I wasn't really looking forward to this, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. An hour and 45 minutes to change 174 cutter heads on the ShearTech Laguna head. Totally worth it, but man, that is a pain. Oh man, that thing's like a new planer. Cuts like it was new again. I can't tell you how many people who have seen my chaotic blocks in person, they look at the blocks and then they look at me like, how did you do that? And really it is not a complicated process, it is just a repetitive one. So after your first glue up, you plane all the glue, you surface it, and then you rip them, you know, on the table saw or the bandsaw. You rotate them at 90 degrees and glue them up again, and then you repeat that process 3 times at a minimum. So, finally got out of the house. I want to share a little something with you guys. Thanks for BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. You know, last year I faced a lot of burnout. You know, having a kid, starting a business, going through COVID. You know, and I've had some stuff that I've wanted to reach out for some help before too, before all of this, but I got burnt out. I worked my butt off building the shop, doing all the videos, and last year I faced some pretty severe burnout, and it's not for everybody all the time, but for the right person, the right time, it's definitely worth reaching out and talking to somebody about, you know. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research, see what's right for you. I was always really intimidated by going and meeting a therapist in person. If you need to talk about family issues, relationship issues, business issues, sometimes it's good to be able to find somebody that you can talk to about it, you know? Nice thing is, you don't have to be stuck with a therapist. You can choose your own one. You know, you talk to one for a little bit. If it doesn't work out, you can talk to another one. Thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring today's video. Appreciate it. So the second round of glue-ups is completed on this. The top one is the knife handles, which I have 2 more glue-ups on. While I'm building all these chaotic blocks, I'm just finishing the last batch of my edge grain cutting boards, coasters, and cheese boards for Christmas for my customers. I'm doing the inventory and launching them on the website. And then at the same time, I'm shooting our collaboration with Carbon Peaks, which turned out amazing. These Sanmai Damascus knives with my chaotic handles, just amazing. So I have a video on that as well. And then at the same time, I built my wife this chaotic bench while she was gone. The video did really well, and my wife really loved the bench, even though there's like 1,000 comments on that video that people say she just didn't like the bench.
A little too fancy for her house.
Okay, we got knife handles, regular chaotics, one kind of chaotic fade, and one other kind of chaotic fade. So I have 2 different styles of chaotic fades that we're gonna try here. Now it's on to the final assembly of each panel. Here's where you need to take extra care on the final design of the way the chaotic is going to look, especially on the fades. The fades were actually pretty hard to do. Pretty excited about this. Was able to glue up 2 panels at one time since I wasn't adding in the individual strips during the glue up. So got a lot done last night. There's 6 panels in here. The technique and the design of making these chaotics is not my own. I believe it was from MTM Woods in Russia. At least that's what I've heard. I'm not so sure about that. I don't know if it was an article in a magazine. I've seen somebody else locally here in Alaska make some bandsaw boxes in the chaotic design, and that was about 8 or 9 years ago. But I would like to give MTM Woods a big shout out. He is a huge inspiration to many cutting board makers like myself. At this point, I'm putting together 10 pre-orders, so I need to make sure I get the right dimensions with which customer wanted which block. How does the saying go? Buy it nice or buy it twice? I'm really lucky I've had a couple of friends who have come over and helped me with this machine. Just in this video alone, this machine cost me 100 hours worth of work. So this initial run is going to be with 37 grit, and it's basically a skip plane. So the blocks will be flat, except the imperfections will still stay in there. You know, a little bit of depth difference will probably happen, but the main part is getting a skip plane enough to where they can sit flat and cure for 7 to 10 days before they go through the final sanding. At this point, the wide belt is just making things really difficult for me. So I do keep my blocks and boards stickered and covered anytime I'm not in the shop, and it really helps with not having them warp on me. That wide belt. And I do love my Maverick abrasive sandpaper. It is really good stuff. The winter in Alaska here has just been brutal. As you can see, I am still driving my rental car. That is the second time I've had to do that in the past month. The snow here is getting ridiculous this winter. Time to go pick up some walnut. I've said it lots of times, but I'm pretty excited about this. Well, we made it. The forklift isn't going to be able to pick this, so I'm going to have to unbox it out here and shuffle her in. Another little side project here, I thought I was going to be able to retail these slabs, you know, locally up here in Alaska, but it just turned out that it was just too much work. Now onto the final sand through the wide belt. So I'm going to go through all the grits, 36, 60, 80, 120, and 150. And if they have a little bit of wobble on them, then I take some masking tape and I shim them up on the bottom to get one surface flat. Bathroom's finally going in after a year and a half. I tell you what, this has just been the craziest 6 months, and it has been probably 2 months since I filmed these chaotic blocks. Now, I did just finish the pre-orders, so I had 10 of them that were pre-ordered. This is what's left. I didn't film doing the other 10 blocks because I just needed to get them done and out the door, and so this is what I have left. Because so much has happened, and of course, I've bitten off more than I can chew. So needless to say, after all this, I need to back it back down and just hopefully get to a point where I'm less spread out. All right, well, that was fun. While I'm finishing up these blocks here, and I'm going to show you all the details on that, I just wanted to touch on the icing on the cake of me being burnt out was getting my truck totaled and dealing with insurance for 6 months, driving 2 different rentals for 6 months, trying to buy a new vehicle in a horrible used vehicle market, and it was just the icing on the cake. Now on to juice grooves and handles. Even after all these years from the little shop, I still use this juice groove jig that works great on the MFT table. Little super clean your router bits. I also use some blade coat while I'm doing the juice grooves. And then it is really nice to use the glide coat to help get that router slide around a little bit better. Then I have this jig that I use for different bits, different blocks and boards in different depths. Now after several passes of getting down to the depth that I need, then I use the little micro adjustment to just take a whisker off of there for the final pass. I add cardboard over the downdraft table, then it doubles as a vacuum clamp table. Just some used 180 and 220. I trim them up to look like this, so they fit nicely on here. It is really hard to convey how much sanding this actually takes. Not everybody sands to this extent, but I really do think it's worth the extra effort. One more day. Might be done in one more day. So these are all sanded at 220 and the grain is raised. These just need to be sanded with 180 and 220 and then 320 for everything else. It's been a long road to get here. Favorite part. So applying the board conditioner here is definitely my favorite part. The board is done. You get to see the final finished product. This new wax that I make is it's really hard. Leaves a really nice protective layer. Smells good. So this is actually mineral oil, 2 different kinds of beeswax to get the correct texture and the correct fragrance to smell. Then from there it's fortified with vitamin E, and the additional wax that is really hard as the Carnauba wax. And that seems to actually have made a really good difference. It really is as smooth as it looks in the camera. I mean, if you feel it, it's like glass. I'd have to say that might be the best block I've ever made before. So I've made a handful of these fade scales, and like in the previous knife video, you've seen I made the big batch of classic chaotic knife scales. So I've had another amazing knife maker make me some knives to match some of these blocks. So this is Peter over at Septum Knives. He does amazing work here. So I've played around with the laser engraver for a little while now. It's time to get these laser engraved so we can send this off to Baker Forge Tool, who makes this amazing steel, for them to do a professional photo shoot with this. So these are called parameter tests. So I've done a bunch of parameter tests and finally got the logo to where I want it. So here we're just setting the autofocus. Snow in June.
Can you make you snowman?
No. So June is Men's Mental Health Month, and you know, I've been struggling my whole life, you know, just like many other men, and you know, ups and downs, and it's you know, it's one of those, it's really hard to talk about, and I have a lot of friends who, you know, a handful of friends who are struggling, and you know, there's been plenty of times over the past 20 years where, you know, I've been deep down in those areas that you feel like you can't crawl back out of, and you know, I've had a lot of ups and downs the past 3 years. It's been a wild ride, but you know, there's definitely been some lows, and I just want to say to everybody who's also struggling, you know, the grass can be greener on the other side when you get there, and adversity does build character and strength. And, you know, I'm proud of you guys. So keep on keeping on.